You thought you knew them. But what you saw was just the costume they wear to survive. That smile. It could be jealousy wrapped in politeness. That compliment may be bait, a setup in disguise. Their presence, not affection, just access. Most people don't tell the truth. They tell the version of the truth that gets them what they want. Because survival isn't honest. It's strategic. And to survive, they study you. They say the right things. Laugh at the right moments. Mimic your values. Not to connect, to calculate. So here's the question. Are you building trust? Or are you just fueling the ammunition they'll one day use against you? Because let me tell you something Machiavelli knew. Most people don't want to know you. They want to know how much of yourself you'll give. They ask about your day. They call you family. They tell you you matter. But miss one call. Go silent for a few days. And they vanish. No concern. No check-in. Just absence. That wasn't loyalty. That was emotional surveillance. So ask yourself, have you ever trusted someone only to realize their care was just curiosity? Their attention was transactional. If yes, this video is not advice. It's a warning. From this moment forward, you stop chasing the truth through conversation. You start extracting it through silence, through withdrawal, or it might liberate you. Because we're about to answer the one question most men carry in silence. What actually happens to your health if you experience full release? Every single day. Stay with me. Because this answer might change how you see your body, your decisions, and your future as a man. These are the 7 Machiavellian mind games to reveal anyone's true motives. One silent move at a time. Pull back. Cancel the plans. Don't text first. Don't initiate the call. Just disappear. Quietly. Like you never belonged. Then wait. Some people will panic. Some will get angry. And some won't even notice. That silence. It's not distance. It's a mirror. Because in silence, they expose themselves. You think they miss you? No. They miss the benefit of you. Because people don't crave what they already have. They crave what they think they're losing. And when you remove yourself, you stop being predictable. You stop being safe. You become a question. Where did you go? Why did you stop? Were they not important enough? A woman once tried this. She stopped initiating. No messages. No likes. No memes shared for 2 weeks. Of the 5 close friends she trusted, only 1 reached out. Just 1. That's the scarcity shift. But don't mistake it for punishment. This isn't revenge. It's a filter. Because here's what always gets exposed. The dependent will chase you. Panicked. Not because they care, but because they lost their supply. The manipulator will guilt trip you. Angry that you revoked access. And the indifferent, they disappear. Because the only thing they valued was your availability. You don't need to explain. You don't need to make a scene. Just step back and watch what rushes in to fill the void. Because how they respond to your absence is more honest than anything they said in your presence. So let me ask you, have you ever tested this? Have you ever gone completely silent and realized who never even noticed you were gone? If not, Try it. Not with anger, but with strategy. Stop showing up. Stop giving. And see what survives. Because this test is silent. But the answers, they scream. Anyone who disappears when your light goes out was never there for you. They were just standing close to stay warm. So, withdraw. Not to punish, but to provoke. Because scarcity, when intentional, is not manipulation. It's control. Take everything they gain from you and take it away. No favors, no advice, no late-night replies, no attention, just silence, stillness, nothing. And then, watch. Because most people don't leave when times get hard. They leave when you're no longer useful. They needed you to help them move, to lend them money, to connect them to opportunities, to sit and listen while they broke again and again. But the moment you say, I'm going through something right now. I need space, silence, no check-in, no concern, no loyalty, just absence. That's the no-benefit test. And here's what it uncovers. You weren't loved. You were leased. And now your value expired. Let me say that again. You were never in a relationship. You were in a transaction. A silent contract you didn't know you signed. The opportunist vanishes fast. Like a dropped signal, the parasite gets offended. Because you cut off their oxygen. The authentic, they stay. They don't flinch, because they never saw you as a service. One man tried this. He said no. Once. To the friend who always needed him. He said, I'm not in the space for this right now. The friend unfollowed him the next day. That was never friendship. That was emotional vending. So let me ask you, have you ever stopped giving and watched someone vanish like you were never real? Have you ever looked back and realized you were the emotional employee in someone else's company? No title, no pay, just silent labor. This test, it stings, but it also saves because it burns the illusion. Not every friend is a friend. Some are just quiet clients. And when your service ends, so does their presence. So here's what Machiavelli would do. He wouldn't test loyalty through gifts. He'd test it through emptiness. Because anyone can love your generosity, only the real ones love your silence. So next time you feel used, don't argue. Don't explain, just remove the benefit and measure what remains. Loyalty that survives your emptiness is the only loyalty worth trusting. Be silent, not in private. In public, don't smile. Don't react. Don't perform. Just sit in stillness. Present, unmoving, unapologetic, and watch. Because the moment you stop mirroring others, you start disrupting the show. You stop being part of the rhythm, part of the script, part of the noise. And in that pause, you'll see who notices the silence and who was only there to echo their own voice off your presence. A man once tested this. At every lunch, he was the spark, the energy, the laughter, the storyteller. Then one day, he said nothing, just observed, watched, listened. No one noticed. They talked around him, over him, like he was part of the furniture. That day, he stopped calling them friends, Because he realized he was never in the group. He was the glue. And when he dried up, the illusion cracked. This is the spotlight freeze. Because your silence in noise reveals the true value of your presence, the status seekers get louder, competing to steal your light. The ego-driven ignore you, because you're no longer the mirror they need. But the grounded, they turn their head, they check in, they say your name, even when you haven't said a word. So let me ask you, have you ever stopped performing in a group and realized no one saw you unless you were entertaining? Have you ever been in a room full of people and felt completely erased the moment you withdrew your light? Here's the truth, Machiavelli would whisper. People don't value your presence. They value what it does for them. And once it stops feeding them, you become invisible. You were the fire they gathered around. But the moment you dimmed, they called it cold and walked away. So test it. Step back. Say nothing. Withdraw your glow. Because silence doesn't remove your presence. It reveals who only came for the spotlight. And those who forget you in silence were never really listening in the first place. Tell a lie, but make it believable, subtle, personal. Then share it with just one person. Then wait. If it leaks, you don't just know the secret escaped. You know exactly who opened the door. That's the micro-betrayal trap, a Machiavellian fingerprint test. Hidden in a whisper. You don't confront. You don't accuse. You just place the bait and track the trail. Because a snake doesn't hiss in public. It whispers in private. And sometimes it smiles while doing it. A woman once tried this. She told a coworker, very quietly, that she might quit next month. No emotion, no drama. The next morning, her manager pulled her aside. So I heard you're leaving. She didn't get mad. She didn't panic. She didn't explain. She just smiled. Because the test had worked. She didn't lose a friend. She identified a leak. That's the genius of the trap. You're not hunting for gossip. You're mapping the limits of trust. Here's what it reveals. The insecure will share it fast, hoping to bond with others by selling you out. The clout chasers will brag, because knowing a secret makes them feel powerful. But the loyal, they say nothing, even when they're unsure if it's true. Because to them, trust isn't about facts. It's about respect. Let me ask you, have you ever dropped a fake detail just to see who couldn't hold it? Have you ever said something just once to one person, and suddenly everyone knew? That wasn't carelessness. That was a controlled leak. And when it happens, don't react. Don't argue. Just note the source. The first person to spread a secret is the one who never deserved it in the first place. Machiavelli wouldn't ask, "Can I trust this person?" He'd test them, calmly, quietly, without emotion. Because real trust isn't something you demand. It's something you extract. By offering the perfect opportunity for betrayal and watching who bites. Say no. Not with attitude. Not with apology. Just no. Then pause and observe. Because you didn't attack. You didn't disrespect. You didn't even explain. You simply drew a line. And that was enough to trigger them. Some people aren't in your life to connect. They're there to control. And the moment you break character, their mask falls. One man said no. Once, a friend asked for help moving. He declined, respectfully, calmly. The friend didn't reply, didn't call, didn't show up again. A week later, he heard the rumors. He's selfish. He's changed. That wasn't friendship. That was emotional blackmail disguised as bond. This is the boundary slam. You draw a small line and see who respects it and who tries to erase it. The manipulator plays victim. They don't say, "I'm disappointed." They say, "You're cold. You've changed." Not because they're hurt, but because they lost access. The quiet controller pulls away, hoping you'll feel bad enough to chase, to explain, to beg. But the grounded, they nod, say "got it," and move forward. No drama, no guilt. So let me ask you, what was the worst thing someone did to you? Just because you said no once. Not out of spite, not to hurt, just because you had limits. Here's the truth. Kindness, when unguarded, becomes submission. And submission is blood to the emotionally entitled. Machiavelli didn't set boundaries to feel safe. He set them to flush out hidden enemies. Because not all wars are loud. Some are silent, fought with guilt trips, polite resentment, and carefully crafted punishments. And every time you say yes to avoid tension, you're cutting pieces off yourself to feed someone else's expectations. So test it. Say no. Don't bend. Don't soften. Then see what remains. Because boundary don't ruin relationships. They reveal which ones were built on access, not respect. If one no breaks the bond, there was no bond, only a bargain. Stand taller, speak slower, smile less, and watch the room shift. Because not everyone fears aggression, but almost everyone fears presence. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to argue. You just need to stop shrinking. Because the moment you stop apologizing for existing, you become a threat. A woman once did this. She stopped laughing at every joke in meetings, stopped softening her ideas, Saturday up straight, spoke with clarity, didn't wait for permission to lead. By the end of the week, 2 co-workers called her too confident. That wasn't criticism. That was discomfort. This is the power flip. You don't change who you are. You change how much of you allow them to see. Your posture sharpens. Your tone lowers. Your eyes hold longer. And suddenly, their story about you changes. You were approachable. Now you're arrogant. You were friendly. Now you're intimidating. Why? Because they liked you better when you made them feel bigger. The insecure feel exposed. They gossip, retreat, sabotage quietly. The manipulative mock you. Subtly, they joke about your ego to keep you small. The grounded, they adjust. They respect. They rise with you. Let me ask you, what happened the last time you showed up without shrinking? The last time you walked into a room like you owned it, not rented it? Because presence is the quietest kind of revolution. Machiavelli never said to dominate with speeches. He said to dominate with energy. And true energy doesn't ask. It doesn't rush. It doesn't soften itself to be digestible. It just is. Like a storm forming in silence. The pressure rises, and everyone can feel it, but no one dares name it. So don't collapse. Expand. Don't be liked. Be undeniable. Because power doesn't always corrupt. Sometimes it clarifies. It shows you exactly who only loved the weaker version of you. And once you rise, they either evolve or reveal. You didn't become arrogant. You just stopped kneeling, and they weren't ready to stand beside you. Now vanish. No goodbye. No warning. No explanation. Just go. Don't text. Don't reply. Don't update. Leave a void where your presence used to be. And let the silence speak for you. Because absence is not escape. It's exposure. A man once left every group chat. No drama. No message. Only one person reached out. The rest never noticed. That's when he realized he was never part of the group. He was just background noise in a play he didn't audition for. This is the disappearing act. The final, coldest test. Because when you remove yourself, you remove their ability to benefit, to monitor, to feed. And in that vacuum, they reveal everything. The insecure panic. They obsessively message, not from care, but from anxiety. The manipulative get angry. They demand reasons. Why? Because they lost control. The indifferent. They say nothing. And that silence was the truth you couldn't hear while you were still giving. So let me ask you, if you disappeared tonight, who would come looking? Who would notice? Who would replace you? And who would be relieved? Most people don't value you. They value access to you. And when that access ends, so does their interest. Machiavelli understood this. You don't test loyalty with presence. You test it with disappearance. Because when you're gone, you're no longer useful, no longer predictable, no longer theirs. And in that void, their real face appears. Not the one they showed you, the one they never wanted you to see. Your silence becomes a mirror. And the reflection it reveals is the version of them that only exists when you're no longer there to serve it. So disappear. Not to run, but to observe. Because a man who can vanish without permission is a man no one can possess. And in a world addicted to attention, your absence is power. Not everyone deserves a version of you they didn't fight to keep. And when you go quiet, you don't lose people. You just find out who was only holding on because it was easy. They told you to be kind, to stay open, to trust easily. They said boundaries were cold. That silence was rude. That disappearing meant something was wrong with you. But they were wrong. Because in a world built on performance, truth is not offered. It is extracted, not through begging, but through watching, not through questions, but through silence, withdrawal, absence, edge. Machiavelli once wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." He understood that words are masks, and masks only fall when pressure is applied. You've seen it now. How they react when the benefit ends, when the spotlight dims, when you stop being easy to reach, to predict, to use. That's where the truth lives. In their actions, when your usefulness disappears. So let me ask you, which game exposed them first? Was it when you went silent and they panicked? When you said no and they retaliated? When you vanished and they forgot you overnight? You weren't cruel. You were precise. Because kindness without strategy becomes a weapon used against you. So remember, people who love your presence will feel your silence. People who love your value will vanish when it's gone. And people who love your weakness will hate your strength. This was never about manipulation. It was about clarity. And clarity, it doesn't always comfort. Sometimes, it wounds first, so you never bleed again. So from this moment on, you don't trust blindly. You test deliberately. You move quietly. You observe how they handle distance, limits, and the end of benefit. Because anyone can smile in the warmth, but only the real ones stay present when you go cold. Truth isn't something you receive. It's something you corner, expose, and extract. One silent move at a time. So tell me this. Which of these mind games revealed the person you didn't want to see clearly? Drop it in the comments. And don't hold back. Subscribe for more unapologetic strategies, brutal clarity, and psychological warfare. This isn't motivation. This is Machiavelli. And here, your silence is your sword.